This is WTF Westworld, and on this episode we are recapping Fidelity, the 6th episode of Season 4 of Westworld. Please be warned that this is a full spoiler recap. All events from every aired episode of Westworld are in play here. Thanks for checking us out. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel and like this video. Feel free to leave any thoughts or theories in the comment section. Fidelity was directed by Andrew Seckler. This is the first episode of Westworld that he has directed. Fidelity was written by Jordan Goldman and Ali Rock. This is the third written by credit on Westworld for Goldberg, and the first written by credit on Westworld for Rock. In a park, a young Frankie approaches a young Jay and talks with him about being an outlier. He agrees to come with her, and they meet up with the rest of the group, including Uwade. As they leave, the rest of the human hosts freeze, forcing them to do the same. Several of the white, faceless drone hosts examine the various humans. They appear to pass the test, but their cover is blown when one of them blinks to ward off a fly. He is grabbed, but Frankie, Uwade, and Jay escape to a safe house outside the city. Uwade compliments Frankie on how she handled herself today.
You were so brave today. You reminded me of your father. He really would have been proud.
Frankie heads upstairs where Jay and her radio are waiting. Frankie tells Jay she's about to call her father. She talks through the radio, telling Caleb about Jay. Jay lashes out when Frankie calls him her brother, and Frankie ends her transmission by saying,
Dad, are you out there?
Then we cut to Frankie years later in a car with Bernard. They have Maeve's body in tow, and they're headed towards the city. Caleb wakes up from a dream, and Charloris flips over an hourglass. Caleb asks her about his daughter, and Charloris responds by asking Caleb why he won't tell her what she wants to know. Outliers keep popping up, and hosts are killing themselves. She pushes Caleb, but he simply,
I'm afraid I can't recall.
Charloris reminds Caleb that he's already dead, and his mind is currently in a body which will die in just a few days. She can fix all of this if he can just answer her questions. Caleb defies her again, and Charloris responds by threatening Frankie. Caleb is very pleased that Frankie is alive, but he's mortified when Charloris tells him that
I sent a visitor her way.
She tells Caleb that he made his choice.
You all did.
Bernard and the gang arrive at the former Temperance Park. Bernard uncovers a hidden elevator, and he and C head downstairs. She questions him about his role at Westworld, and he answers her in a truthful, yet vague fashion. Bernard lays out the situation with Maeve. Her body will be easy to fix, but being underground for so long has corrupted her control unit. They will have to replace it with another.
This will do.
They put Maeve in a bath to heal her body, and Bernard sets about replacing her control unit. He explains that their odds of success are 60-40 in their favor.
The other 40%?
Let's just say she wakes up on the wrong side of the bed.
Bernard tells C about how Westworld used the hats to copy the minds of guests. After Westworld, they switched to using mirrors, which were much more effective. They're going to use this technology to speed up Maeve's data transfer. C's friends will be here before the transfer completes, and they cannot let them interfere. Bernard hides the control units in a nearby piano, and they wait. We're back with Caleb, who encounters a previous version of himself who is covered with cuts and blood. He looks around and sees many other identical rooms filled with different versions of himself. He talks with the bloodied version and gets some cryptic advice.
If you succeed, you run. If you fail, you hide.
Caleb uses this advice to find a needle with some kind of poison hidden in the hourglass. He's pricked by it, and he collapses to the floor. We're with Caleb when he wakes up, but it's years ago. He wakes up in the hospital, where he's greeted by his nurse, Uwade. One of the faceless drone hosts examines Caleb and determines that he's dead. He schedules him for termination, which sets off fire in the cell. Searching for a way out, Caleb notices an arrow scratched into the floor vent. He manages to move the vent cover, and he escapes. Back at the hospital, some time has passed, and Caleb is looking better. He asks Uwade if his friend, who we know to be Maeve, has returned. She has not.
Even if your friend doesn't come back, stay awake anyway?
The vent drops Caleb in a disposal area filled with the ash of previously incinerated bodies. He finds a way out and moves forward. Bernard has finished repairing Maeve's body, but the control unit transfer is not complete yet. C asks him if he knew Maeve, because she did. The last time she saw her father, he was with Maeve, and then he never came back. C wants to know what happened. She then spends a minute disparaging hosts in general, and Bernard replies that
Saving the world makes for strange bedfellows.
The rest of the crew arrives, led by an older Jay, and Stubbs is with them. The gang tells C about saving an outlier, Lindsay, which is what we saw in the previous episode. They think that somebody tipped off the enemy that they were coming. Jay wants to gather everybody to get answers, but C tells him not to bother. She shoots Bernard, outing him and Stubbs as hosts. C shows the rest of the group a datapad with a scan of her that Bernard made and says that he wants to scan all of them.
You are?
It's complicated.
Bernard asks that they trust him, but no one is willing to do so. Jay wants to destroy Maeve's control unit, but C refuses. She needs to get the information about her father. After that, they'll kill all of them. Caleb continues his escape attempt, following clues left by previous versions of himself. He's confronted by one of the faceless drone hosts, but Caleb manages to disable him. Caleb is pretty banged up after this encounter, and while on the floor, he notices a bloody handprint on the ceiling. He climbs into a vent next to the handprint and proceeds onward. C interrogates Bernard about what he's doing and asks again about what happened to her father. She threatens to kill him, and Bernard tells her that
You've killed me many times. It doesn't change the outcome.
Bernard also tells her that the mole is one of her friends. She doesn't believe him, but Stubbs thinks that she should.
Writer's usually right about this stuff. Really annoying, but right.
She asks Bernard who the mole is, but he doesn't know. Depending on which iteration it is, it was all of them at one point or another. Hell, one time
it was even Stubbs.
What?
He does know that there's not a single version of this where all of them come out alive. If she doesn't kill the mole, they will kill her. C is sitting on the stairs contemplating her next move when Jay approaches her. He asks what Bernard told her, and then says that he thinks they have a mole in addition to the hosts. C is the only one he can trust. He tells her to make a sweep of their defenses and meet back here when she's done. C heads out and she's met by her girlfriend, Odina. C explains what she's doing, and Odina tries to talk to her. C doesn't seem to trust her and pulls away from her touch. Odina says that she knows C well enough to know that she's not going on a patrol. She's going to finish rebuilding that host. This appears to tip C off. She pulls a gun and forces Odina into a closet and locks her in there. For her own good. Back in the city, Charloris is monitoring Caleb's progress. She talks with Clementine about interacting with the humans, telling her that she wants to put an end to this. Caleb makes his way through the vents, eventually finding another version of himself who is close to death. That version tells Caleb to use him to escape. Caleb does, using the body to cushion his fall to the floor below, like he's Jason Bourne. We see that he's not the first to try this, but he is the first to succeed. Caleb has another flashback to his life with Frankie. This time he's helping her with a skinned knee. He tells her the kind of person who can't be beat is the kind of person who won't quit. We see Caleb get up, and he makes his way out onto the roof, and he heads towards a transmitter. Jay finds C sitting in a room with Maeve, staring at her. Jay knows why she wants to wake Maeve up, but it's too risky. C confesses to him that she still sends messages to Caleb on the radio. She needs to know what happened. Jay pleads with her, saying that they're family, and they'll find another way to do this, together. He calls her his sister, which we know is something the real Jay would never do. She gets up and tells him that they're going downstairs to retrieve Maeve's pearl from where Bernard hid it. They head outside and C hits Jay over the head with a bottle and confirms that he's a host. They fight and Jay manages to get the upper hand, and he demands to know where Maeve's pearl is. Thanks to skills he learned from his job as a technician, Caleb manages to hotwire a transmitter, allowing him to send a message to Frankie. He tells her that he loves her, and he's sorry that he couldn't keep his promise to come home. But he knows that she's going to do what he couldn't. She's going to win because she's strong. The world that Charlora's made isn't real, but she is. She can do this. She's his warrior, and he loves her. As C and Jay play a game of cat and mouse around her vehicle, Caleb's messages begin to play on the radio. Jay shoots it, and C uses that moment to go for her gun, which is laying on the ground nearby. She shoots Jay multiple times, to no effect. He asks again where Maeve's pearl is. C says that she stashed it. Jay asks her where.
Behind you.
Maeve heard the message as well, and both her and C think that Caleb is alive. C tells her that she's Caleb's daughter, and Maeve replies,
Of course you are.
Caleb is still on the rooftop, where he's confronted by Charloris. She confirms that she set all of this up. He's been through it hundreds of times, and she looked for a clue as to what makes him so special that he can resist her commands. Charloris berates him about his decisions. He made it further than anybody else, yet he wasted his shot on an apology. It won't make up for the decisions that he made years ago. She tells him that Frankie didn't even hear it, and Caleb tells her that
She doesn't need to.
she's going to lose. They didn't infect their hosts. She did. Her hosts would rather die than live in Charloris's world. They're not infected. They're just trying to get away from her. Shalores takes this about as well as you would expect, and she snaps Caleb's neck. She walks to the very edge of the building and looks upon the world that she has created. Maeve and C talk about the night that Maeve died with Caleb. Maeve didn't think it would turn out like this. C offers her some encouragement, and Maeve says that,
Well then, let's finish what we started.
Shalores is done with her experiment, it seems, so she has all of the other versions of Caleb terminated, but we see that she's printed version number 279. He's standing by a chair with his motor functions frozen when Shalores sits down and asks him to wake up. Here are 3 thoughts from Westworld Season 4, Episode 6, Fidelity. Number 1. What does Shalores have in mind for Caleb 279? It would seem that her plan with the radio has run its course. Perhaps she really intends for this Caleb to actually escape in order to use him as bait? Number 2. Was Shalores telling the truth when she told Caleb that Frankie didn't hear his message? It sure looked like she did to me, so maybe Shalores isn't one step ahead of everybody for once. Hopefully what we're seeing on screen is what actually happened. Number 3. It seems obvious that C is going to team up with Maeve, Bernard, and Stubbs, but what's their plan? I don't think that they'll go straight for Shalores, but I do think they're going to try to link up with... I don't think that they'll go straight for Shalores, but I don't think they're going to try to link up with Christina either. I say that they're going to try to recruit the OG Man in Black and or his host. Now, it's time to give a grade to Fidelity. And let's be honest, Westworld is complicated enough, so we keep the grading system very simple. If an episode was bad, it gets a what? If an episode is good, it gets an okay. And if an episode was great, it gets a yeah. I think Fidelity is pretty clearly an okay episode of Westworld. It might be the best Caleb episode that we've gotten, but almost everybody else is spinning their wheels a bit here. This could prove to be a bit frustrating if we don't get to see Bernard and the gang until the finale. Before we get out of here, let's check out 3 theories about what could happen next on Westworld. Number 1. In the next episode, we see the host Man in Black flip sides and or liberate the OG Man in Black, assuming that he's, more than just a head. If he's just a head, not sure how that works. Maybe we get a Futurama head in jar thing going on. Number 2. Shalores starts wondering if something is wrong with her. Maybe she's been infected like the other hosts who encountered the Outliers? Is she the source of what's happening to the other host, or even the source of the Outliers? Something is up with her, and you could tell when she was looking out over the city, she saw her arm bleeding. You did think for a second that, man, would she jump? Number 3. Part of Bernard's plan involves making host copies of C and the other Outliers in an attempt to disguise what their real plan is. He has to be doing something like that, right? He saw him get the scan of C. Why else would he be scanning them, if not for some part of his plan? And it seemed like Stubbs didn't even know what was going on, so we'll have to see where that's going. Thanks again for checking out this WTF Westworld recap of Fidelity. WTF Westworld is presented by The Joe Blow Show. Find us on social media at Joe Blow Show. Please remember to like and subscribe, and please drop some theories in the comments. That's like the best part of Westworld. See you next time.